Loud, frightened myself. At least we've woken up. I used to be a producer and reporter, a journalist at the BBC in the TV newsroom for 15 years. I joined the BBC a long time ago, back in 1993, where there was no social media, there was no Google, there was no, Twitter and Facebook, and none of the things that we normally use now to find stories. So I've seen a massive amount of changes, and a lot of my job since I left the BBC 7 years ago has been going back into the newsroom and other newsrooms and trying to change behaviour and get them to use these social media tools. And boy, do I wish they were around when I was sitting in a newsroom. I'm going to try and speak a bit more slowly. My tendency is to rush and to shout and to talk with my hands a lot, so that's why I'm sitting like this on my hands, trying not to wave them around in case I knock that over or the water. So my name is Sue Llewellyn, and I can see a lot of people looking at that and thinking, how do you spell it or how do you pronounce it? I'll come back to spelling and how you find people with strange names on Twitter particularly, but it's pronounced Llewellyn. It is actually Welsh. I have worked, in addition to working with and for the BBC, who are my main clients, I've worked with a lot of different media organisations and have done sort of masterclasses of all sorts in digital strategy and planning. These are just some of them, and other clients outside, like, I don't know, the Bank of England or the Football Association or British Olympic teams, those kind of things. So most of my work is with media organisations. All the tools I'm going to talk about for searching Twitter today are free and easily accessible by anybody. So I'm not going to talk about paid tools, but we're just going to look at how you find people, stories, ideas for stories, how you can sort of spy on people, that sounds terrible, but legally, and find stories that perhaps you didn't know existed out there. So everything that we do is paid for, and I just put that in because I found it the other day and it amused me. That used to be my contacts book, and vast, great, contacts carried around in my Filofax, and I'm so glad we don't have to carry that around. It's all this these days, or social. So I'm going to allow time at the end for questions, and it would be great if you had any questions. Do feel free to ask. But one thing I always tell people, hello, do come in. I always recommend to people, and don't be scared of me, do come and sit at the front, I won't bite, is to create a document of your saved searches, whether it's a Word document or a Google Doc, because a lot of people will be working on stories, the same stories, time and time and time again, and you need to be able to just cut and paste the searches that you're looking for. And having been in the newsroom for such a long time, stories come round, sadly, again and again and again and again. So it's not that I'm obsessed with plane crashes, but I do have examples here to show you of how you would search when there's a plane crash. We have, unfortunately, had rather a lot over the last year. So, and then when the news breaks that something's happened, you can literally go in and cut and paste. And each time you've searched, it's always worthwhile thinking, how has somebody else expressed themselves? What words are they using? And how language changes. So a lot of people, your audience will be using different types of words. So think how they would be tweeting. So always save your searches. So has everybody got a Twitter account here? Hands up, everybody. Yes, almost everybody, not quite everybody. So what I'm going to do, just in case there's people who don't understand what you can do with Twitter, is I'm going to start really basic, and then I'm going to zoom through in a very short period of time the much more advanced things. So we're going to start with the most basic kind of things, and just looking for a person. I do wish that Twitter would expand the search box. It's incredibly small and very tricky, difficult to put in exactly what you're looking for. And some of your searches will have spaces or no spaces. So if you're looking for something very specific and it has a space in the wrong place, you will get no results at all. So basically, if you're looking for a person, you just put their name into the box, and all down the left-hand side, you can see the different categories that you look for. So I'm going to work my way down those and tell you what you look for. But to find anything about Barack Obama, everything that's on Twitter from everybody, you just put the search in there. And then click all, rather than top, because all will give you the most recent stuff, as opposed to stuff that perhaps has had some retweets or is had a bit of attention. So if you click all, you'll get the most recent stuff. Obviously then, you can search with a hashtag, and I hope everybody knows what hashtags are and are using the IJF15 hashtag regularly and tweeting. And just down the bottom, what I remember on the left there, the all people or people near you, that's assuming somebody has their location switched on, or from people that you follow, or just everybody on Twitter. The people you follow can be very useful if you're looking at a breaking news story and you just want to see, hello everybody, you just want to see, gosh, it's filling up suddenly, whether somebody else has that story, whether other organizations are covering it. So that's the kind of time, sorry, am I speaking too loud, too soon? Okay. That's the kind of time you'd use the people you know or people you follow. So once you've put in your search and you're looking for a person, and this is where a lot of people go wrong, is they forget to click the people box, so they're still in the everything box, and so you're wading through a load of old stuff that's not relevant to you. So it's important that you click people if you're looking for people, and also the blue tick is a verified tick, and I've only known it to be, ooh, the sound's gone. I've only known it to be wrong a couple of times, or certainly once, but the blue tick is verified by Twitter, so it really is who it says it is. So when you see that, you can be pretty sure that you have a good verified source. So always look for a blue tick if there's an option. I will talk in a minute a little bit about verification and some of the things that you should do for it, because obviously when you're searching, there's an awful lot of rubbish out there and a lot of fakes, and some fairly regular fakers who like to catch us out. So searching for people. The other thing that's really incredibly important, and that is your bio. And when you're searching in somebody's bio, the keywords that you use there, so if you put journalist, or I'm sure he probably does say president in his bio, if you looked for a president, if you put that word as well as a name, then you're going to find people in particular places. I'll show you that in a minute. So looking at the people, just be aware that you're looking for, sorry, I'm distracted by people coming in all the time. There are no more chairs. If you wanted to pull one of these chairs, somebody come around the side, perhaps. There's a couple of spare ones. So the problem with Twitter, obviously, is a lot of fakers. So when Pope Francis was being announced to the world, I don't know how you declare it, but somebody said, "Ooh, look, he's already on Twitter." So I don't speak Spanish, but even I can translate that as being, I'm the new father, children will love me more than Father Christmas. Hashtag Vaticano. But look how many people had retweeted it. Everyone gets into this frenzy of retweeting, and when a journalist retweets something without checking it, others think it's okay, they must have checked it. So nobody's taking responsibility. Do you remember Felix Baumgartner, who jumped out of that space capsule? I found 21 fake Felixes that day. One of them was Spanish, which is amazing. So one of the lessons there is always take your own name, or if you're launching a campaign, make sure that the name is taken or somebody will fake it. Anyway, if you'd looked at this account, first of all, he was just about to appear on the balcony, and he wasn't sitting with a mobile saying, "I'm the new father, children will love me more than Father Christmas." Secondly, if you looked at who he followed, he was following Ricky Martin. I don't think that the Pope he might like Ricky Martin, but so you need to have a sort of skeptical mind whenever you see something on Twitter. Just 2 days ago, I think, this account crops up again and again and again, and it's always changing its name. So if you see that a celebrity or a famous person has died, never believe it until you can prove it. So this one was saying it was the Norway defense minister announcing that Gorbachev had died. And again, it was retweeted by quite a lot of people. But if you had looked at the account, you'd see it was pretty much brand new. And then a few minutes later, the credit popped up saying that it's another one of these that Tommaso De Benedetti had faked. He's doing it regularly. Anyway, I sent a message to say I'll credit you. So there you go. Well done. If you're watching, you're great. But it gives us always something to look at. So what you need to do in this case is maybe to follow some of these fakers and put them into a secret list, and I'll explain lists in a minute, so that you can see when they change their bio or when they start tweeting. So I followed this one, and if you tweet again, I will get a notification on my phone, and then I can see that you've changed it, your account again, so it might be time to set up a new one. But there is a thing called bioischanged.com. Now, BioIsChanged did say recently that they were going to shut down their service, and I'm really glad that it hasn't shut down because it's brilliant. It shows you each time somebody has updated their bio or completely changed the name of the account. So, and it goes back quite a long way. So if you just put somebody's name in there, you can see whether they've changed their account name or indeed any of the small details. Each time we all update our bios, the details will be in there. So it's quite good as a research tool to see what people have been doing previously, job-wise. So if you are spotting an account, this one is an MP in Britain, and he has 22,000 followers. So you might think, ooh, it must be him. He has a lot of followers. But you can buy followers very easily. So don't ever look at the numbers and assume that it is who it says it is. What you need to do is, first of all, open their bio completely so that you can see what they're saying about themselves. And if you look at his, first of all, the username, you need to look at the username because it might be spelt incorrectly or have a 0 instead of an O. And look at what they say in their bio. I particularly love this one because it says Secretary of State for Education, spelt wrong. So there's a clue there. The second clue is it says he lives in a parody in Surrey. According to Twitter's terms and conditions, you need to say if you're a parody account or a fake account. So have a look at what they say in their bio and then look at their tweets. Do they seem normal or are they claiming to be more popular than Father Christmas? And then look at who they follow and who follows them. There's plenty of other things you can do, but that's a starting point to see whether the people are who they say they are. So enough on verification. And also, in case you hadn't seen it, there's the new verification handbook is out and it's free for everybody. So I was going to put a link on here earlier, but my computer wasn't working. So, but the new verification, if you just Google verification handbook, it's a free resource and it's brilliant and it's got lots of tips. So looking for photos and videos, which are increasingly important, especially in a breaking news situation. The basic search would be just to click the photos or videos boxes in the search thing there. Or you can look for vines as well, the 6-second short videos. To search for GIFs, it's a little bit more complicated. But if you wanted to see the moving things, I just thought I'd search cats because that's what you do on the internet. So doing a search for a cat GIF, or these could be interesting memes that are out there. So you might want to be searching for something, you know, each time a meme happens and somebody creates an animated GIF. So whether it's Angelina Jolie's leg at the Oscars that sort of turns up everywhere or whatever it is, you could have a quick search for some of these animated things. More interesting is finding people in a particular place. Either they say in their bio they're from a particular place, or it's actually they've got their location switched on. Not many people do have their location switched on. According to Joanna from Twitter, it's about 4%, and sometimes I think it's sometimes a little less than that. But if you do have your location switched on, it's not only quite unsafe, unless you particularly want to be located, it can happen on your phone without you really realizing it. And I've found journalists tweeting from unsafe locations. So I can show you later if anybody wants to know how to switch it off and also what it's collecting about you. But for now, if you're just looking for somebody in a particular place, you put in the keyword, so it could be a doctor or a brain surgeon or a journalist, near, colon, and then the city name. And there's no spaces. This is the really important point when I said be careful about spaces. So when it says near, colon, Perugia, that's almost like one word. And you can do this with any city and try and find people that way. Twitter's advanced search box, if you ever get stuck and forget all the things I'm going to tell you, there's obviously loads of help sections, but the Twitter's advanced search box is very useful. And it has all sorts of different filters that you can do. The one disadvantage with it is you can put a search in, then click go and look in Twitter, and when you come back, everything you were doing has disappeared, so you have to reset it. So I personally think it's far easier to learn the search terms and to make these documents with your cut and paste searches as you go along. Also, when you've made your document, you can see if you have the spaces in the wrong place, or it is actually spelt wrong or spelt correctly. So be careful with that. Within the advanced search function, you can obviously search in different languages, and you can search by date. So from a particular time to a particular time. There is another tool called Topsy, which is also very good for doing that, and I'll mention Topsy again later. So plenty of things that you can search for. Obviously, you can include words, exclude words, look at particular dates, look at particular people. I'm not going to go through all of these in the advanced search, but I will tell you about them for learning the syntax for searching yourself. So first, if you're looking for a person, particularly a person with a ridiculously difficult name to pronounce and spell, like Llewellyn, you need to just put that multiple ways of spelling people's names in there, and a lot of people will have their real name for searching rather than their real name for the Twitter account. But think, how many different ways can you spell somebody's name? So I've just used Catherine as an example, and it could be with a K, with a C, with a Y instead of an I. It could be a short form of it. And what you need to do is put an or in capital letters. And obviously I'm training you all, teaching you all here in English, but so it's this or that word or the other word. So it's going to search multiple different ways of looking for somebody's name. And it's definitely worth spelling their name in multiple different ways and also misspelling it. There's an awful lot of people who can't spell anymore. So it's very easy to just make a typo or just to put something in wrong. So I often would recommend you search words incorrectly spelt. Perfect example with the deputy the Labour leader, Ed Miliband. People still spell that wrong. Or Jimmy Savile, who's a horrible man and a paedophile. So people are still searching double L-E, and journalists are still using double L-E, but it's easy to remember because he's vile, so it's one L. So do search this word or that word because people do get it wrong. And then sometimes, no matter how badly you try and search somebody's name or how badly you misspell it, you can't predict the results you'll get. So I absolutely loved this tweet from Naomi Campbell congratulating Malala. But actually it's malaria. So, you wouldn't have guessed to spell malaria if you were looking for this kind of tweet. So I think that proves my point that people can't spell anymore. Anyway, I love that. I think it's absolutely awesome. So what you need to do is think of the way that somebody is expressing themselves when they're tweeting. They will use different words from you. They will use a range of different words. They might use short forms of words. So just looking at, these are a couple of searches. If you say somebody has been attacked, someone else might say they've been mugged or beaten up, in inverted commas, for more than one word or a phrase. Put that in inverted commas. So thinking, okay, this is how they're going to say what's happened. So it's going to look for this word or that word or the other word, and therefore you're going to extend your search quite significantly. The second search I've looked for there, I know this is a bit strange thing to say, but in English, we have many, many different ways to say you're drunk. Many, many different ways. And I was training the England under-19 footballers the other day, and I said, I just want to show you what journalists might do if you've been using your social media accounts inappropriately. So I do this with a lot of sports people or celebrities. So they might put in keywords that you've used, like, yeah, I'm really drunk, and then make a story about it. So I said, okay, guys, who wants to volunteer to see if you've ever tweeted anything bad? And one of them put his hand up and said, okay, I'll do it. So I said, right, okay, we could say his name, I won't mention it, drunk, pissed, bladdered, wasted, all the different ways we explain ourselves. And he went, nah. And they all went, nah. I said, what do you mean? Won't we find anything? They went, nah, we don't use those words. We use the word wavy. So basically I'm a bit wavy when I'm drunk, which is a totally new word for me. I'd never heard anybody express themselves as wavy when drunk. So you need to think your audience, the young audience particularly, will be using different sorts of words if you're looking for stuff. Or they might be using a particular type of language. So think about how they could express themselves. I would never have thought to have put wavy in there. But when we put wavy, sure enough, we found a tweet about him saying that he'd been a bit wavy. Which is great. So then I was showing them about how people can find anything or make any story. So you may want to find a politician who's mentioned something. You could put their name in with, I don't know, immigration or whatever kind of things you're looking for. So look for the keywords that you can put in with their name. To add or put in some other filters, this is a filter that Joanna at Twitter put up because obviously we're heading into the election period. So this one would find you people who have used either the hashtag GE 2015 or UK election or election and one of the following words, pamphlet, leaflet, poster, billboard, slogan, or whatever. But then it's also filtered by images, so she would only find images of posters or slogans that had mentioned these words. And it's taken out retweets. So it has removed the retweets, which is a really important thing to bear in mind when you are in a breaking news situation, because it's terribly, terribly noisy with retweets. So minus RT, when we used to do RT as a retweet, it's slightly different now, or minus filter : retweets. I can see lots of people taking notes. I won't switch the slides until you've taken the photo, but so that's how you would find lots of different things. You don't need necessarily to put the word "and" in there. It assumes "and," but for clarity of the search, to make you think, I've got this part of the search and that part of the search, then you can see exactly what you're looking for. And again, these are stories that will come up over and over and over again. People will make mistakes during election periods, so you can think about how they might have cocked up, or a blooper, or they've done something wrong. Then you're going to be finding stories ahead of other people. You could also, and this is a bit more complicated, and I can explain later a bit about the looking for people in a particular location. But location search in Twitter has changed a bit recently. It used to be really easy to put in near Perugia, near : Perugia, within : 5 km for a 5 kilometre radius. That doesn't really work very well anymore, or sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So a more effective geographic search would be to get the coordinates, the latitude and longitude, for a geocoded search. So you would need to go to a website or Google, and Google has the coordinates for the maps in it. But if you went to something like latlong.net, put in the place you're looking for, and you write the word geocode : lat, long, and then the radius. And it has to have a radius in it. It won't work without. So this was just a search that I did, looking for anybody talking about the election within a 5 mile, and I did miles because that's what we do in England, as opposed to kilometres, radius of the Houses of Parliament. So I was looking for people in London really talking about the election. You can take this right down to a very small radius, but the chances of finding somebody in a tiny radius are quite slim because not many people have their location switched on. The near : Perugia bit is assuming that they've written, if you're looking for a person, that they've written that in their bio, if they haven't got the location switched on. So most people don't lie about where they're living in their bio. I do, but most people don't. I do because I don't want people knowing where I do live. But it just says London, that's fine. So I think that looking for somebody in a particular location there, the geocoded function is really useful. And you can search, I think it's 2,000 kilometres, I'm not sure, and down to about, 200 metres-ish, but you won't find anybody doing that. But those things are quite useful if you were looking for, I did it actually when there was a shooting at LA Airport. I got the coordinates for Terminal 3 at LA Airport and put in the word shooting, shooter, shots fired, all the different this, and this, and then the geocode, and found lots of people, because in LA you do locate yourself. It's like, hey, I'm in LA, I want to be an actor. So there's a lot more people in urban environments geolocating themselves than if you were looking, for example, when the Germanwings plane went down. That was very hard to find geolocated tweets at the time. I tried very hard and could find virtually nothing because it's quite isolated in that area. There were 2, I think. But so, which brings me on to plane crashes, unfortunately. This is just a bunch of different ways of expressing a search for the different stages of a plane crash. And when I put this search into Tweetdeck, I usually break it up into the stages of the crisis. It could be a plane has gone missing from the radar, it's lost contact, it's squawking. 7700 is the emergency squawk thing that people put out, and Flight Emergency, the Twitter account, puts out tweets saying somebody's squawking, and it's quite alarming when you get the notifications on your phone, realise quite how often there are emergency calls, but it could just be, we need to return because something, fuel or whatever. So all of these searches of the different stages, and then you can filter it down. So I've used this many times in the last year, unfortunately, or bits of it. So the plane goes missing, the plane crashes, the debris field, and the debris is found, or the black box, or whatever. I couldn't fit everything on this page, but it was just to give you an idea of the sort of things that you might be searching for in a situation like that. So all I need to do then, when I hear that something has happened, is add the flight number, if you know it, and the airline, and then you're off. And you can filter by images or videos, or you can go into lists and look for people. Also, you can search in different languages. So, when the Algeria plane went missing, I was obviously searching in French. So these are just multiple different ways of searching for things. And it is quite shocking when you sit there thinking, how many ways can I express plane crash or a missing plane? So it would be the same for any kind of story. We will express it all the same kind of ways. So that's part of the looking for sort of horrible breaking news. And in a breaking news situation, what I would do is take one of my cut and paste searches, because the stories come around again and again and again, and stick it in with a geolocated search, looking for images, looking for videos, all the different columns in Tweetdeck, with a radius on some of them. And so there you go, it's all coming in. And I also, one of my other cut and paste tips, which is very sneaky, is for when you find the eyewitness, the journalists are all going to say, did you take that picture? Is that your photo? Can we use it? May we use your picture? Can we use your picture with credit? Two things on that. One is, first of all, you need to say, did you take it? And may we use it? Because the copyright rests with the person who took it, not the person who uploaded it. So did you take it, and may we use it? And secondly, by having a cut and paste search like that, I can just see when any journalist anywhere on Twitter has found something. And I just have this in my column, and I can see them all asking people for contacts for stuff. So it's really interesting. It saves a lot of work. I didn't put that search up, but it's very easy. So the other thing to do, which I think I said before, excuse me, is to think how people speak and the words that they use. So imagine you were a journalist wanting to write a piece about marriage or weddings or getting married, a newly engaged couple, or maybe you're a TV producer and you want to make a program like that. What would you search for if it was you tweeting? What would you search for to find a newly engaged couple? Does anybody want to shout anything out? That's after they've got married. But just married is good if you're looking for those wedding shots or wedding, party shots. Anybody else? Sorry? Oh, sorry. I can repeat the thing. So we've had just married or wedding preparations. Anybody else want to say anything, and then I can...
Usually she said yes.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Oh. Well done. Woohoo! Round of applause. Normally, yeah. Have you done it? The she said yes works almost every time. I have found a lot of other she said yeses, and you need to be careful with that. But and there's quite a lot of she said yes to accompanying somebody to a prom, but she said yes almost always works if you're looking for somebody. So that you get the idea of the sort of things people say. So think of the time and the place. So not the wedding preparations or the just married, but the immediate excitement. She said yes. Or, as this chap did, who's actually Jacques Cousteau's son, he's done loads of different words in his thing. So I was demonstrating this to somebody using she said yes. And also we had proposed to, I'm getting married. So there could be multiple different ways of doing it. And then you're going to find all sorts of stories. So just thinking how somebody expresses themselves, and quite a lot of the time, the way they express themselves is emotional response to something. So thinking about, oh, yay, she said yes, or, I'm so happy, or whatever it might be. Just thinking, put yourself in their shoes and in the time that they might be expressing that. Also, what they're looking at the time, if it's a breaking news story. They don't necessarily say, I'm standing in the Hotel Brufani when something happened. They might be describing what they're looking at. So just thinking of how they see things, how they feel things will help you find stories and ideas. So another thing that you can do, which I think is fantastic, is you can look for the sort of questions people are asking about anything on Twitter simply by adding a question mark. So if you wanted to find out questions about journalism, you just put in journalism, question mark. If you wanted to find out, I don't know, anything, this one here I'd put was anybody talking about the election or talking about how to vote or whatever. But I'd also put in minus Hillary because Hillary Clinton announced the other day she's going to stand. So just thinking of the sort of questions that they might be asking about a topic that you're writing about or producing a program on. So it could be, I don't know, taxes or voting or nursing or Alzheimer's or whatever it is, question mark. And you can also ask the questions, put a question mark to see who's asking people questions. So what sort of questions are people asking celebrities? For example, put in the celebrity name and then question mark. So to, I'll show you in a minute, to : celebrity name, whatever, question mark. Very good for looking at what sort of questions politicians are asking, people are asking the politicians. The other thing to be looking for is if you have a program or a paper or whatever, is multiple different ways that people might be looking or talking about on Twitter, tweeting about your program. This is BBC Breakfast, a program I used to work on. So if you wanted to listen to what the audience was saying about stuff they were looking at on television, some of them will know there's a username at BBC Breakfast. Some of them will be using the hashtag. Some will just say, I watched something on BBC Breakfast this morning, or I'm watching breakfast. And a lot of people still call it Breakfast News, which was its old name. So there may be many different ways they'll be talking about your show or your program. And the other thing I'd add into that is the presenter names. Again, either in inverted commas or their Twitter handle. And then you'll hear people who are watching or listening or reading or talking about you, and you can join in, and that would increase audience engagement. Or you'd get a heads up, an early warning if there was a problem and somebody was tweeting bad things about your show or you'd made a mistake. So just thinking of the different ways people will talk about your program or your paper or whatever it is. Other things that you can do on Twitter would be the crowdsourcing, asking people for their help, and they will help you. If you value their contributions and you say thank you and you ask them nicely and you're not just using Twitter as a broadcast tool, but if you're very much a collaborative person, you'll get a lot of help from people and a lot of insider tips and ideas for things. You'll also get a lot of rubbish, but you can easily ask for help. So BBC Trending looks at it's great actually, you should have a look at their stuff if you don't follow them, but they're asking people for what they've spotted that's trending in the world, on social media, interesting stories, and they get loads and loads and loads of recommendations from people. And for that reason, it's also quite a good idea to have an email address in your bio so people know how to find you and can offer you tips. The thing is, when you do the crowdsourcing, asking people, you need to be prepared. There's a lot of jokers and idiots out there who will waste your time. And I do think there is in England the hashtag journo request, or help a reporter out, and hashtag journo request is often used by magazines saying, I'm looking for a newly engaged couple to feature in a magazine, or somebody who's lost their cat, or whatever it is, hashtag journo request. Quite useful to follow it to see what sort of stories people are doing. But again, anybody could make up anything, and you don't know if it's right or not. So I personally think do the searches for the words, the natural conversations that are going on, rather than say, does anybody know someone? Because you'll get responses like this one. And don't mean to be mean to any particular reporter in particular, but looking for the British executioner from Islamic State, Jihadi John. Does anybody know him? Yes. Does anybody know? And I love the response. Yeah, I remember him. Top bloke. He'd do anything for anyone. Really chatty. Loved cutting the heads off chickens. And she'd go, oh, great. Which school were you at? I've seen this with so many journalists who put out a request for something like that. And this guy in particular, but not the Jihadi John. And then you get that kind of response. So please be... So don't be one of those journalists. Don't be so dumb as to put out a request like that and to take it seriously when you get somebody who's, not taking you seriously. So I think that's great, and that's a lesson to all of us to be careful what people are searching for. So talking of swearing, she says, it's a really good thing to look at some swear words for breaking news stories. A lot of people will say, holy crap, or like this one, which you can read yourself, when something has happened, when they're surprised and they're shocked. So putting swear word things in, and it's quite interesting. Obviously, you're going to get a lot of rude things as well, but for breaking news stories, I've definitely seen a lot of people swearing when it's, crap, it's an earthquake, or that kind of stuff. So having a look at that, or just thinking when they are tweeting their response to a breaking news story, the words that they might use for it. So hence the "I just crash landed." And also, and I'm obsessed by this, the people who are in these situations, you have to make sure they're safe. Don't go asking them to do something for you because they might be putting themselves in danger. So, I've just crash landed. Oh, can you just nip down there and take some pictures for me, or periscope it? No. You have to be really careful with that. So are they safe and are they okay? Make sure they're okay. They will be traumatized. You've got to be so careful with this. Some of the people, so the helicopter crashed into a building in London, and the guy there, he didn't respond to anybody who was asking him to use his pictures because he was too shocked. And then they get overwhelmed with responses from journalists who usually say, "Can I use your picture?" Not, "Did you take it?" And they don't think about the rights or any of that sort of stuff. And there's plenty of sessions here about UGC and ethics and rights. But I personally think always say, "Are you okay? Are you safe?" And you just look like a nice human being then, rather than a horrible predatory reporter just out to do something. And I have seen some dreadful responses from reporters to people. So a guy didn't know whether his mother was alive or dead in the Christchurch earthquake, and she was missing, and a reporter from Australia was, "Call me, call me, call me, call me, call me," until Twitter turned round. Everybody went, "No, you shut up and leave him alone. Poor guy doesn't know if his mum's alive or dead." So she had to shut her account down. Bear that in mind. So then we get to Tweetdeck, which is a brilliant tool if you don't use it. Tweetdeck? Yes, nodding. Tweetdeck's filters are something you need to learn to love because it's really going to help you. And I think, I personally spend most of my time in Tweetdeck because I think it's great if I'm monitoring lots of different things. So there's a ton of different filters you can use and lots of different things you can do in Tweetdeck. And I'd normally recommend people have the 5 or 6 columns open in front of them that they're working on at the time. So in a breaking news situation, I just go bang, 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 and set up lots of different columns with multiple different filters on them. So on this particular screen grab, there's my home page, which is everybody I follow, but you can also put in anybody else's homepage. I can see what they see on Twitter by adding their homepage into Twitter. I think you can do this on the app Tweetbot as well. But so if you wanted to see what, the president is looking at, or you wanted to see what your friend is following or another journalist is following, you add their homepage into Twitter and you get their Twitter experience. It's very useful for finding contacts that perhaps you didn't realize were out there. Equally, it's useful to see who these politicians are following. And bear in mind that everyone can see who you're following like that, not only by looking through your followers, but by having your Twitter experience. So adding somebody else's homepage is really useful. You can also add somebody else's favorites. So if you find a useful source who's favoriting things, you can add their column in there as well. So you can see every time they favorite something. Or indeed, if politicians, I always keep doing this because it's election time, but if politicians are favoriting something inappropriate, great story. And the other thing that you can have is a column called user. So all the tweets from a particular user. So you can see exactly what they're saying, and then you might wish to filter it with a sound, so you'll hear exactly when they tweet. So in this setup, I've got my home thing. I'm searching for the election hashtag. I've got a column with people asking David Cameron questions. So it's simply just as you can see, David_Cameron, because that's his real name on Twitter, ? So I can see all the sort of questions that are coming in from anybody. And then I have a list. So this is, I think, a general election. Can't remember which one that is. Anyway, but a list of correspondents, I think, covering the election from the BBC. Because I was doing some training recently for journalists there who are covering the election, so showing them how to get the most out of Twitter. So you can have multiple different features and columns. Then the next sort of set of filters that you've got is you can search by all the tweets or just tweets with images, or just videos, or just vines, or tweets with links if you want to. So if you're looking for somebody who's sharing links to stories or pointing to a website or something, you can have a look at that. The other thing that's quite interesting in Tweetdeck is the engagement filter. So if you filter by engagement, you can find stories that are suddenly getting popular. So they're beginning to be retweeted, or they've had a lot of favorites. And maybe you want to find pictures that people like, you know, funny pictures or something. So you could filter that by images and then the engagement level. So it's quite a good way of spotting stories that are getting popular or that are being shared widely. So you might get ahead of the curve on a breaking news, not breaking news, but you know, something that's being widely shared. So then you can also filter by different users. So from somebody talking to somebody, or just go into a list and filter out tweets from that particular person. And when I said the alerts, you can filter with sound, so you'll hear when somebody says something, or maybe you're waiting for an announcement. You can hear when that comes, or you can get a pop-up, which I personally find extremely irritating. So just a sort of look of the plane crash type thing. Again, here we go. But they're filtered by different things. So some are just filtered by images. Some are searching, you know, different things. So this is what I mean about throwing in lots of different columns. Then you can also add lots of other filters yourself. So if you need to find politicians or celebrities responding to something, so for example, say somebody famous dies, and you want to get their response to say, oh, I love that person, they were great, or, you know, the normal thing that we do. If you put in the search for the person's name, the person maybe who's died, and then filter : verified, you will just get verified accounts who are talking about it. So that will include politicians, celebrities, and lots of media. But from the media section, you can go minus and take out links. So you're going to cut out quite a lot of the media. There are multiple other ways of filtering that. But so therefore, you're more likely to get normal, you know, celebrities who are talking about stuff. So it's definitely a quick way of finding a response to either a tragedy when the, you know, president of somewhere or a politician expresses something, or in the congratulations, or otherwise the celebrity response. You can filter just for links or without links. So if you didn't want stories in there, you can cut out a lot of stuff, or you could be looking for it. Maybe you're looking for a piece of academic research. You may want to filter by links. You can filter retweets in or out, and quite often I'll just filter them out because the noise is overwhelming and you really just want to cut the noise down as much as possible. You can filter tweets from a person, so from whatever their username is or to whatever their username is. And obviously then I've put the thing in there of asking questions to that person. And if you find when you're searching there's a word you don't need, so like you want to do a story about Turkey, you may wish to take out Christmas, or roast turkey, or, you know, recipes for turkey, or whatever it is. So put minus and the keyword you don't want. So if you put in Turkey as your search term, minus Christmas, all one word. She says, I'm already really hungry. So yeah, you can take things out and put things in. I do love Christmas dinner. Anyway, so tweets from a particular person. So you can either do this in Twitter itself, or you can go into your Tweetdeck and put a user column in. And the user column is really useful. And actually, as a journalist, I find it really useful sometimes just to follow somebody's tweets for a day or two or a week or two to see how they're using Twitter, the sort of things they're talking about. And if you're trying to build up a platform, you know, a profile of somebody, you can get a really, really good idea about what they do and what they say by filtering them by user. So you can see where they go on holiday, what they like to eat, what their kids are called, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then you have a really good picture. And if you have a user put somebody's Twitter name into the user column in Tweetdeck, you don't have to follow them, so they won't know that you're listening to them. You can also put them on a secret list. Lists will be your friend. If you're not using lists, you are really, really missing a trick. So the best thing I'd recommend to start with, if you haven't used lists, is to find somebody that you know and trust, and then to see if they've made any lists. If you know and trust them, you know the quality is likely to be good on this list. So you could just put a search in to put twitter.com, the username /lists, and see if they've made it. Or you can go to their profile, and once you've opened the profile completely, you'll see on the right whether they've made any lists. You won't see their private lists. Nobody knows that they're on a private list, and you can't see the private lists, but they're really useful for following people without being seen to follow them. So looking for lists that way is really brilliant. Quite a lot of times you'll go there and you'll find there are no lists because a lot of people aren't making lists. Twitter don't make it easy to make lists or to find lists or to use lists. And while I'm here actually, the better option for looking at lists really fast on your mobile rather than the Twitter app is one called Tweetlogics with an X. Tweetlogics has a really, really good, very fast way of looking at lists. So that's what I do on trains, quickly zip in and look at lists. So I've covered lots of topics and then can get on with stuff. So once you've found your lists, you can do a search in Google, and if you put a little star in there, if you don't know who's made it, you'll bring up all sorts of lists. So if you don't know who's made the list, so like, lists with Llewellyn, no, it could bring up anybody's list. So I was looking for, which one have I put in? Yeah, people who've made a list for the journalists, speakers who are speaking here at the conference. And so you can search in Google. And once you've found the list, you open it, and then you can hit that little subscribe button, which I don't know if that's going to point, but there. Does that work? Yeah. So if you hit subscribe, then you can follow the list. You won't be following all the people on that list, but you will be getting all their tweets once you open the list. And that doesn't really work on Twitter itself, but on Tweetdeck, that's how they really come into their own, because you can have multiple different lists. And they maybe have 2 or 3 people on, or they might have hundreds of people on. So it's a really, really quick way of finding what you're looking for. So after this session, I will probably go and I'll look at my A list, which is a private list. And it's just people I think are really, really good, and I therefore won't ever miss any of their tweets. And there's only a handful of them. So it's going to keep you on top of things. Also, in a breaking news situation, sometimes people make a running list, a list of things that are happening. And if you look at members rather than subscribe to, so you see here it says subscribed to or member of. Subscribe to means that person made the list or they are following somebody's list. Member of means they've been added by somebody else to a list. So this was one I did when there were some tornadoes in Oklahoma. So I went to one of the official sites, the Oklahoma sheriff, who obviously would be involved in the rescue, whatever it was. And I looked at member of, and you can clearly see there that the media organizations are making lists as the story's going on, so you can find their contacts. It saves you some work, but it's often quite a good place to look. And while I think of it, if you find yourself look and see who's put you on a list. If you don't like the look of the list that you're on, you are put on a list called losers or something. If you block that person who's made the list momentarily, your name will drop off the list, and then you can unblock them afterwards, and they'll never know. So if you ever find yourself on a list you don't want to be on, as I have done once, it was losers, because I didn't follow somebody back. And then somebody put me on another one of anti-feminists, which is enough to make me really angry. So I blocked them, and then they did it again, and I blocked them and did it again, and they didn't know, and they eventually gave up. So looking at lists that other people have made is useful. Looking at who's subscribed to a list is also useful. This is much more of a deep dive for a story. So if you have a very specific list and you look at the subscribers, it may be they might be useful contacts, they could be experts on something, or you just get an idea of who's liking them. So I made a list. I thought the Oscar Pistorius trial was extraordinary. So I geolocated journalists in the courtroom, and then I made a list of all the people who were at the scene doing the court case, and I said, here you go, Twitter, help yourself to my list. And then I thought, who's following it? And so I looked at the subscriber list, and it's really interesting what it shows you. So it's nice to be able to make a list for people and share it if you want to, and to follow stories like that. But do look at who's subscribed to it, particularly when you are doing a research on something. The other thing is notifications and alerts. This is really useful. So if you put your mobile number into Twitter, you can get these notifications, she says, popping up on your phone. So I choose to follow a certain number of people so I get notifications on my phone. And again, I might do this as an experiment to see, okay, today, what are you talking about, or how are you doing something? So all you do is you put your phone number in there, and you can get people you've enabled for mobile notifications. I also get direct messages, and this thing called tweet alerts. And there are certain, first of all, this is how you subscribe to individual people. So each time you think you want to get an alert from somebody, the mobile notification, you go into their account and you switch on mobile notifications, and then every public tweet will come up on your phone, and then you can switch it off. So you could put it on or off. You know, we're waiting for the announcement of the birth of, you know, the next, prince or princess, and whatever they are. You can get notifications if you want to follow that. Or the alerts. So some organizations, emergency services, police, those kind of people have these alerts. So what you can do is you can subscribe to that. Sorry, chatting, hello. And this is what it looks like when it comes up on your phone. So I've got the Foreign Office travel alerts. So I'm warned if something's going on in a place. Geolocation-wise, in the States, you can still search for zip codes. So if you know the zip code area you want to research, you can say, okay, there's been a shooting in such and such a place. You just stick in the zip code, or just find out people who, the bottom one there on the right is just people who are based in San Francisco. So you might find interesting things. When doing a search near a place, Twitter's going to be changing its search thing, and so all the slides I've just shown you are going to be looking different pretty soon. And so I did a search yesterday, and this popped up, and then I did it this morning, and it didn't pop up. So it looks a bit different. So when you go in there in the next few days, you might think, gosh, what Sue's slides didn't make sense at all. Because every time I do these slides, they are out of date as soon as I've done them. So just be aware that it will suddenly begin to look different. I've done the searching near a place, and what was that one? Yeah, the thing about the geolocation safety, I know I've only got 5 or 10 minutes left. It used to be on Twitter that you could see where somebody was tweeting from. This is the presenter of Channel 4. So he's tweeting from Afghanistan, and you can locate the building he's tweeting from. Twitter don't have this anymore. They have a little coded thing saying place. But in some apps, like TweetLogix, if I was to take a tweet with the little pin thing, which is now this little pin, if that's on the right-hand side of a tweet and you click on it, you can see where they've... and you still get this map with the GPS location of where they are. So that's quite useful for finding people. Other things you can do, you can look for trending tweets in particular countries using something called Trends Map. So if you wanted to see what's trending in Italy, you can look at somebody else's favorites by using Snapbird. Topsy is a really brilliant search tool, and that's really good for old tweets, but it's also good for finding tweets in a particular date, time, how many retweets they've had, and influencers. You can search the bios of your followers by using Follower Wonk, which is very useful if you needed to find a journalist in a particular place or who's following you. And you can search for influencers. And sometimes influencers are not where you think they are. They're not necessarily the people, famous people with huge numbers of followers. They might just be hugely influential in a very small little niche. But Topsy itself looks a bit like that. So if I was looking for the election, you can look by recent searches, a specific date range, by people, or by relevance, or by age, that kind of stuff. So to quickly recap what I've been saying, put an exact name or a phrase in inverted commas, use hashtags, do this or that or the other, search near a place, take out retweets, so it's either -RT or -filter retweet. Remove the words like Christmas from Turkey if you don't want it. Verified tweets. Anyway, those are all the things I've talked about. So my top 5 search tips are: be curious, think around things. I think people have lost the curiosity gene these days. They just don't seem to be as nosy as I am. And I always think, I wonder if that search would work, and I play with it, and it does. So be curious. Try alternative spellings and misspellings. Get it wrong, because other people will be getting it wrong. Think like a thesaurus, so think of multiple different words that you could use. So this word or that word or the other word. Use Tweetdeck, because it's going to make your life so much easier with lists, and save your regular searches. And I'm very happy to answer any questions, but thank you very much for coming, everybody. There's a microphone if anybody does have any questions, which will be... Oh, there's one there. Who's got a microphone? Sorry, I'll put my glasses on, then I can see you.
Thank you. I got 2 questions. One is technical. We used to use the widget and to embed it into our websites for following some events with a particular hashtag. How can we exclude and remove the retweets? That's one. The other one is we used to use the hashtags only for being part of a big event or to create a widget, but we normally do not use the hashtags anymore. There is quite a debate about that because some people are saying that it's not very useful. I mean, you don't really need, because you can use the search, and even if you don't have the hashtag, you will find it, so that's not very useful.
Taking out retweets from widgets, I actually don't know. All I would know is how to put the search in the first place of what you're looking for, and to remove the retweets. So I'm not sure. And there's obviously the difficulties of putting live tweets into anything that are unfiltered, because you're going to get people messing around with it, or content that you don't want on there. So I think there always needs to be some kind of a filter stop. But I actually don't know about the widget, how you can filter out. So I can find out. The other thing is using hashtags. I think using the hashtags, people are still using them to search for stuff, and particularly if it was a program or an event or a conference, they will still use them. So if you use them in your tweets, then people can follow that stream. It is true that you can search and find the stuff without the hashtag, but I still think hashtags have a place. The one thing with hashtags that I would issue as a warning is that Islamic State hijack hashtags. And I know Twitter have done an amazing job shutting down lots of accounts, but so we have a thing last night of the Proms, which is a huge, big musical event. It's very British, and they hijacked that hashtag by putting their horrible video and photos, horrible, onto the hashtag, so that anybody searching last night at the Proms would have seen that picture, which is really awful. So you need to be aware that if you are running hashtags and using things, somebody somewhere might decide to put their content onto it or to abuse it. So there's yes and no to using hashtags. I think it's a judgment call on an individual basis. Are there any other questions? Anybody want to know? Well, that's easy then. Well, if you've got any other questions, if anybody wanted to see afterwards, I think we probably have to move out of here, but how to protect your location on your phone, I can do that maybe outside. I presume others are coming in. But anyway, thank you very, very much for coming. There is another one of these tomorrow, but thank you.